Yeah, I love it. We're right in that in between where summer's giving up the ghost and we're heading into fall a little bit. So
Hmm.
it's still early here to see fall color. Some trees are coloring up a little, then that's probably more an indication of a problem with the tree. So
Is I don't know if Lyle or George are on here, but I was in the Platte Valley the other day, and ash trees and cottonwoods are turning color.
oh, are they?
You know, it's starting. I don't mean it's not a grand display, but it's you can't miss it that they're the normal suspects. Ash for sure. They're starting to color up.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank goodness for ash and cottonwood.
well, it's it's what we have.
Right.
So
Well, we had a wetter year this year, so for much of us, maybe that'll help. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But yeah, hey everybody, welcome to Tree Planting and Care 101 webinar for September. We're talking fall color and seed collecting this week. So I'm happy to have Bob Henriksen on. Everybody knows Bob, uh, horticulturist and plant grower for the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum. He grows a lot of the plants that we get to enjoy in fall color. And I've asked him to be on here today to talk about these things we're going to highlight for fall color, but also give us some tips and tricks about how we go collecting seeds and grow these things up to enjoy for everybody. So I really appreciate you being here, Bob.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Always good to be here and good to see a lot of familiar names and faces out there. Thanks for tuning in.
You bet. I've started the recording. Um, so we're going to record this webinar. We record them all. And I'm going to look here just so I can remind everybody what's up next month. We're going to be October 10th. Evergreens and Christmas trees with Todd Faller from Faller Landscape. Todd is one of our more knowledgeable people about evergreens in the landscape, and he'll be able to guide us through that. That'll be fun as we prep for cold weather, Bruce. It's going to be snowing out in McCook, maybe not this year, but maybe next year.
No snow free.
Some one of these years.
Yeah.
And ask questions as we go along here for sure. I'll try to monitor the chat. I've started recording. And then for those of you who are certified arborists, we will have collect your names and certification numbers for ISA and NAA CEU credits. Somebody chided me to remember that at the end. And Bob and I both have a hard out at 1 o'clock. I'm teaching tree ID for arborists today, and I got to get back over to the East Campus Union shortly after 1. So I apologize for that. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Bob and I pulled together some images. Can everybody see that? Can you see it, Bob?
Yeah, no. Uh, no.
Uh-oh. Zoom quit
There we
unexpected.
go.
There we go.
Okay,
It was
I
just being
got a
slow.
note that said Zoom quit. It's never a good
We don't want
sign.
that note. No, we don't want.
Oh,
Hey, and Darren had a question already, Justin, and Darren, we will address your question when we get to the seed collecting part of it. So just hang tight.
boy, we're running into technical difficulties already. So, did you have a thought there, Bob?
Well, as far as well, Darren had asked and said he just started collecting red oak and bur oak acorns, and yeah, they're usually the first to drop, and people are probably noticing that. If they're not dropping, the squirrels are getting them early, right?
Yep.
And so he just asked how I properly store them, prepare them for planting, and when to plant, etc. And Darren, oftentimes when I see the mistake with seed collecting is, first of all, if they're laying on the ground, how long have they been there, right? Have they dried out? And oftentimes you can just kind of roll those acorns in your hand and you can feel their weight. But an easier way to do that is called the float test. So you get them home and then put them in a bucket of water, and whoever floats likely doesn't have nut meat in it, and whoever sinks does, meaning the sinkers are the good ones, the floaters are the bad ones. And you could cut a few open with the pruners and take a look inside and see why did it float. And you'll go, maybe there's worms in there eating all the nut meat, whatever the case may be, or it's just really dry, laying on the ground for a long time. So the float test is a good thing to do. And then after you, flush out all the water, I dry that acorn, just surface dry it, put it in a tray or whatever and let it dry before I baggie it up. If you baggie them up wet, they'll often mold in that bag. But letting them dry, surface dry, you put them in a baggie, and then you need a 90-day chill, not the freezer, but the refrigerator. So 38 degrees is ideal, something around there, and which most fridges are set at. So that's perfect. And if you see condensation in the bag over the winter, I usually actually open that bag so it doesn't get too moist in there. Too much moisture will equal to mold in your bag. But it's that simple. Collect in the fall, do a float test, baggie them up, and write a date when you need to take them out. Put it on your calendar or whatever to remind you. But they need 90 days, and then you can go ahead and sow them in the spring after you get that winter chill, or you can just do a fall sow and let nature do it for you.
Yeah, already good advice, Bob. Thank you.
I,
Yeah, we'll be showing some acorns and nuts, and we'll have a chance to talk more about that here as we get going. So let's dive right into this. I hope people can see the screen. I'm not going to belabor the point on this, and we'll probably fly through these images of fall color so we can really dive into getting Bob's advice on collecting and growing these things. But Bob and I have some favorite trees and shrubs. We thought we'd show you just a smattering of these things. Here are just some quick thoughts, deep thoughts on fall color. I don't need to read all this, but basically, in the science of fall color, as nights lengthen and the temperature cools a little bit, chlorophyll production starts to break down in the leaves of our trees. And then there's two chemicals that are unmasked because the green goes away, the carotenoids, which are the oranges and the yellows, and then the anthocyanins, which are the reds and the purples, start to express themselves that are, if they're present in those unmasked leaves. We don't need to get into the rest of this, but let's hope this is a good year for fall color. Last year was a little muted to me, but we still had quite a bit of good fall color.
your second one, Justin, where you talk about that hard freeze, that
Oh, yeah.
people often ask what leads to a good fall, and I had a dude explain it this way, and I thought, wow, that makes a lot of sense. You see that where the leaves are like stuck on the tree right when they drop, right? They literally are freeze dried green. They look freeze dried. Well, that was an abrupt freeze. Like your first freeze, you don't want it to be 22 degrees. You'd rather
Right.
that first freeze be right around 32, and that sets things in motion. So cross your fingers that we get around 32, a frost one night, maybe even the upper 20s, and then for a short time, and then we get warm days and cool nights after that. Those will lead to fantastic falls. It's those abrupt 22,
Right.
20 degrees. And that's why Western Nebraska often gets hammered because
Yes.
your first freeze is often, you know,
Right. We're
but
here in
that,
the Great Plains with these temperature extremes that the east of us doesn't get so bad. Western Nebraska is more extreme than east. So
yeah.
I've got to admit some people from the waiting room. Okay, let's keep going on this. Yeah, we'll show you some of these common trees that people love to have. People plant red maples all over eastern Nebraska for this fall color. They are beautiful when you get a good year. Fairly easy to grow. I love a red maple. They're not my favorite maple, but this is red maple on the left in Lincoln, and then on the right is a hybrid red maple silver hybrid. And these autumn blaze maples usually color up very nice in the fall, and they get planted all over, but we don't promote them too much anymore. I personally think there's better trees. For example, sugar maple would be my more favorite maple for fall color. And Bob's often down in Table Rock collecting seed from our Table Rock sugar maples. This is fall color of sugar maple, more oranges and light reds. And then on the lower right is the Caddo variety, which we're having good luck with for its heat and drought tolerance here in Nebraska. That comes to us from Oklahoma. What are your thoughts, Bob?
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, when we were first looking at that thing, we didn't know if it would color up, right? Because of being from Oklahoma origin, but it has been pretty darn consistent. And, there's a lot of great cultivars in the trade. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. Green Mountain's one of them, right? That I think is
Yeah,
pretty consistent. Fall
Bonfire,
Fiesta. Yeah, Fall
yes,
Fiesta. I know Todd Pollard
Legacy.
there likes a lot. So yeah, sugar maple is often overlooked because it's one of those hard maples, right? So it doesn't bust
Yeah.
up in storms as easy. It's slower growing in production.
I'm going to throw some trees in here for Western Nebraska. We've got some people on. Hal Enevolson, I see you're on today. Thanks for joining us again. So I know Hal has planted this tree, but he also has sugar maples out there in Potter. This
Mm.
is big tooth maple from the Rocky Mountains, mostly in Wyoming and Utah. We don't use it a whole lot, but it's thought to be a remnant or relict Ice Age cousin of our sugar maple, more of a shrubby species from the Rocky Mountains.
Huh. And Justin, is that one available? Can people get that out west, like from
They can, like if you're in Denver or Fort Collins, you can sure track it down. And maybe in Scotts Bluff, but it's
Mhm.
worth a drive over to Fort Collins to get this tree.
Heck yeah. You hear that, Dave? Do it.
Yep. There are other maples, our ornamental maples. We could talk all day about maples. Some of my favorites are the Shantung maple on the left, which usually gets a nice yellow when we have an extended fall. Acer triflorum is a really rare tree, but boy, it'd be worth tracking down. And then Japanese maple on the right.
Mhm.
So those are a few maples to throw at you. Those are the easy ones. You know, everybody loves and wants a maple, but I think both Bob and I would tell you if you want more reliable fall color, go with an oak. Bob, you were mentioning the other day that we got seasons of fall color, right? They start
Yeah.
early with the maples, but then we transition to other trees.
Yeah, there's almost two falls, an early fall and a later fall, right? And the early fall is your ash and sumac
Right?
on into maples and then yeah, you've got your November fall color, which is where the oaks are really doing their thing.
So here's a red oak on the street in Lincoln starting to color up. And then on the right is from a native population in southeast Nebraska. There's a cousin of the red oak here in Nebraska, which grows alongside of it in some of our woods. That's the black oak on the left. I love that tree. And then on the right, we have some trees in Nebraska that are a hybrid between blackjack oak and black oak. So those are we call bushes oak, and they often color up pretty nicely. The tree on the right is from a park in Waverly.
Mm. Yeah, and that black oak, folks, if you go to Indian Cave State Park, for example, and you're hiking around Indian Cave and you're admiring all the red oaks, just know most of what you're looking at are black oaks. There's red oaks there, but man, it's dominated by black oak there in Indian Cave and very much overlooked oak. And I know, Justin, you planted one at your place because there's one of
Yeah.
those things where what's a tree guy going to plant? It maybe took you a while and said, I'm going to do black oak. And not only
Yeah.
did you do a black oak, you planted a darn acorn rather than even
Yeah.
putting a seedling in. And was
Back
it,
in my cheap days, yep.
was it like a 40-foot tree by now, at least?
It's pushing, yeah, at least 30 feet. It's a street tree, and that picture in the middle is from that tree in Waverly. Yeah, I love that. And that's a late November picture.
The leaves tend to be glossy, kind of shiny, and very thick and leathery, which is a good testament to its drought tolerance compared. I mean, it's a red oak, it's in a red oak family, but red oak is probably, which is also a tough tree, I would say, marginally drought tolerant when compared to a black oak.
Right, right. That black oak's amazing. Okay, a few more of the red oaks. So, Bob, we're going to group these into red oaks and white oaks, and we'll talk about
Yeah.
this in a minute, the differences for acorn collecting and germination. But here in eastern Nebraska, if you want a tree that's going to just be brilliantly bright red in the fall, pretty reliably every year for me at least, is the scarlet oak on the left, and somewhat of a cousin to that is the Shumard oak on the right.
Yeah, two overlooked oaks that starting to get planted more. I know my brother in Dodge, Nebraska, has planted scarlet oaks all over the park. It's its new favorite oak. So he's just like, you guys need to promote this oak more. It's great.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
Boy,
we
well,
do.
good.
We try. And would you
Yeah,
say,
right,
Justin, Shumard oak is more a southern?
right,
And so again, that heat and drought tolerance
right.
we all should be paying attention to. Man, you can't go wrong with Shumard.
Right on, brother. Yep, we've collected them out of Kansas in the past. I think we'll do that again this fall or next.
Yeah.
More red oaks, the Buckley oak on the left. For those of you in western Nebraska, and Bruce, for you in McCook, George in Ogallala, have you tried the Buckley oak? It gets a lot of good press on the front range of the Denver and on the Rockies. Good fall color. It's a native in Texas and Oklahoma, so very heat tolerant. And then shingle oak on the right, a lot of years gets a nice tannish brown color.
Mm, no doubt.
We'll move into the white oaks. So we were talking about the red oaks first, which seem to get more bright colored in the fall compared to our white oaks. But then our white oaks are generally a little bit more soil tolerant for western Nebraska. We don't normally see good fall color on our bur oaks, but there's a bur oak here I took a picture of last fall that's showing some fall color, and it might have some genetics from another tree like a post oak in it. That tree in the middle is a white oak, the true white oak. They color up nicely for us in eastern Nebraska. That picture's from Gothenburg. And then the picture on the right is a hybrid white oak between bur oak and white oak that Greg Morganson in Bismarck, North Dakota grew and took the picture of.
Yeah.
Some of our favorite white oaks here, right, Bob? We like Chinquapin oak, dwarf Chinquapin oak, and then on the right is a cousin, the chestnut oak, which is very common in the eastern U.S. But these are all from Lincoln area in terms of fall color. Any comments?
Yeah, and more often than not on the dwarf chinkapin and the chinkapin, I would say the color's not loud. You
Right.
Um, certainly, some years like 1 in 5, you might get some decent fall color on it. But yeah, I'm not planting dwarf chink or the chink for the outstanding fall color. But bronze is a color too,
Yeah, right.
and so. Because some people might say, well, it just turns brown. It's like, well, actually, we call it bronze.
Yeah, I love it. That is a color too.
Yeah,
Okay,
why
moving out of the oaks,
not?
we talked about this a little earlier, some trees that are just so reliable for us still, and unfortunately they're going away in eastern Nebraska pretty rapidly. That's our ash trees. And on the left in the picture from Waverly on the block I live is green ash on the left and white ash on the right. Green ashes color up a bright yellow reliably most falls, and then white ashes are often a mix of reds, purples, and yellows.
And they were the replacement for the elm, right? But that
Yep,
became apparent. And most of the time at the nurseries, people would come in, I want that tree that turns purple in the fall. And everybody and
yep,
their tree dog wanted it back in the 80s and 90s.
yep,
And what I'm seeing is the green ash are getting attacked first, it seems, over the
yeah.
white ash. But man, if you're thinking, well, I won't hit our town, yeah, right. I mean, it's going to be pretty devastating here in Lincoln.
Yeah, these trees on this block in Waverly where I live, they all have EAB in them now, and they're declining pretty quick, unfortunately.
Wow.
Bob, I
All of
think you
them.
took this picture of a cottonwood. I
Yeah.
love it in the fall when I drive across Nebraska and the cottonwoods might be yellow and shimmering from Scotts Bluff to Nebraska City. What do we think about sweet gum, Bob? This is a tree that looks kind of like that maple and maybe not quite as reliable in fall color as a maple out here, but some years it's really a kaleidoscope of reds, yellows, and purples.
Yeah, I mean, like that picture you took on the left there, that may be at the Game and Parks headquarters. I'm not sure where you at there with that shot, but my oh my, when it does its thing in the fall, I mean, pretty much rival any plant out there. They're pretty tough. I don't know how far west we could take a sweet gum if anybody's got one west of Kearney. Um, it might be a little iffy. I know they're very popular in the Kansas City area, much
Right.
so that people complain about them being a messy tree because those balls get in the gutters. And I remember being in Kansas City one fall, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can kind of see what they're talking about. The whole gutter was just full of those balls.
Yeah. Spiny balls that you wouldn't want to have bare feet on. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. We'll throw a few at you here, maybe run through them a little quicker, just to save some time. This is tulip tree from the Wayne Park in Waverly. Trees in the full sun will color up better than in the shade. I definitely know that in Waverly now. So many of our trees are getting shaded out and they just don't color up like they used to,
Uh,
including those tulip trees.
wow.
Here's some of more of our favorites, Bob. You love the grow these hickories, don't you?
Oh my, yeah. I mean, oh, and first though, before I comment on that, Austin commented that the Council Bluffs staff loves the tree, the sweet gum, and planted 30 plus this fall at the west entrance to town. Wow, that's cool. So Austin, they must have a lot of confidence in it, meaning they can point to some sizable trees that have stood the test of time, I'm assuming. Because for me, it's like, okay, do you put all your eggs in one basket, or are you saying, well, no, we've seen enough of these trees and have enough big ones to say, let's really push it, right? And that's kind of for me with the hickories, the bitter nut. I mean, man, when we go into the woods, you guys in southeast Nebraska, the bitter nut is always a good looking tree and toughest of conditions. You know, their foliage is similar to an ash, as you can see, and that fall color, the picture doesn't do it justice. It's just such an amazing, bright, clear yellow on it. And people say, well, yeah, but they're slow growing. No, I found the bitternut hickory to be just as fast as any ash tree.
Yeah.
I mean, almost as fast as a red maple. Let's put it that way. And the nuts are small, they're only an inch, so they literally get lost in the grass. And my tree at home that I planted in 2011, so that makes it what, 13, 14 years old now, is over 30 feet tall. And it was only
Did you go that far on the east
3 feet when I planted it. Susan, you are on the air. Anyway, yeah, so love that tree, and as well as the shellbark hickory.
I'm muting.
Justin and I were at Joslin Art Museum this summer, taking a little tour there, and wow, they planted shellbark hickory there that they got from me as a little seedling, and that thing's 25 feet and pretty.
Yeah.
What a beautiful tree.
Every year goes by, Bob. I love that shellbark hickory more. I used to be a big advocate of our native shagbark, which is still a good tree, but that shellbark just grows faster and becomes a tree quicker.
Yeah, and easier for me to get nuts. That's really the main.
Yes, right. Big edible, tasty nuts. A tree we don't use enough of is this black cherry on the left. That's a native Nebraska tree, Midwest native tree. That's at the park in Waverly. It has good spring flower colors, white flower, and then here in the fall, usually you get a good apricot yellow to red on it, and I love it. And then on the right, all across the state, the choke cherries color up nicely most years. So don't forget about our lowly choke cherry.
Heck yeah.
The Buckeyes, and for you guys in Western Nebraska, you're probably getting color more reliably than we do here in the East with some of our foliar diseases. But Greg Morganson showed a picture of what he calls lava burst from the North Dakota State University on the left. Isn't that fantastic?
Wow.
A ginkgo, that's a ginkgo just south of East Campus here in Lincoln, and it'll color up really nicely most years. The thing with the ginkgo, they'll be yellow for about 3 or 4 days, and then they'll drop their leaves pretty darn quickly. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people at Peru State, they have this ginkgo there, and they have a competition of who can predict the day the leaves are going to drop.
Oh, that's right.
And I don't know if they still do that, but I thought that was a pretty cool
That
competition.
is cool.
Make
You
you
get a
keep your
carpet
eye
of
on.
leaves.
Yeah.
Black gum is a tree we don't use much of, but it could be used more, especially in eastern Nebraska if you've got a good seed source. And it can be another one of these trees with a kaleidoscope of colors, anywhere from yellows and oranges to reds and purples, depending on the year and the sun angle.
Yeah, that picture there, Justin, was were we together that day, or I can't remember if you took me to this tree. It's here in Lincoln, and the fellow was actually outside.
I've never talked to him.
Yeah, so he was actually outside when I was driving by with somebody else then to show him the tree, and he was outside, and I can't remember where he said he got it now, but it wasn't us. But anyway, probably a 30-foot tree, and look at how the branches do that cool
Yes.
wavy
Yeah. Just
growth pattern.
undulation of the branches.
What a cool tree.
Right. That's a good identifier for black gum. Those branches wave off away from the tree like that.
Mm.
Another underused native tree, in our opinion, would be ironwood. It likes late day shade, but boy, it'll color up yellow in the sun good years. And that's the tree on the left is now our state champion. It's much bigger than that old picture. That's at the Lincoln Children's Zoo in full color. A couple trees we don't run into as often, but they're out here. And if you look for them, you'll definitely see fall color. The persimmon on the left, you might have color in both the persimmon fruits and the leaves, which can be a yellow to red. And then on the right is sassafras, which will also have mixes of yellows, oranges, and reds.
Yeah, one of the best.
Serviceberry, they are pretty darn reliable for fall color, aren't they, Bob?
Yeah, they sure are. There's a couple different animals out there. One that's often in the trade is autumn brilliance, aptly named,
Yep.
and the shadblow serviceberry, which is more of a small tree. Don't confuse that with another one that's more of a shrubby thing, the Saskatoon.
Yeah.
And that shrubby guy, the little short guy, Regent is a popular one. I mean, the fall color's yellow bronze at best, whereas this other autumn brilliance and shadblow is this beautiful orange to red, pumpkin orange, I guess is often referred to. Yeah, one of the best for fall color.
Yeah, I love them. If you want a tree that we don't think of for fall color, but it also has fall fruit interest, are crab apples. Quite a few of them will color up pretty nicely in a good year. And on the left is Indian summer. On the bottom is prairie fire, a well-known Midwest crab apple. And on the right, picture from our park in Waverly. I don't remember the tree, but that's a November or December picture of the colorful fruits. We'll
Okay.
blast through a few of these colorful shrubs just to show you that beyond trees, there's another layer in the landscape that we can look at for fall color, including black chokeberry, red chokeberry, and then the dogwoods, our gray dogwoods and our roughleaf dogwood here in the Midwest, all color up usually a nice reddish purple.
Heck yeah. And I even you could throw silky dogwood in that mix
Yes,
too. And that rough leaf dogwood is for, man, I got this really tough site. Nothing will grow there. Whereas silky's more like, I got this site where it always stays wet. Not that silky needs that, but still, man, that silky dogwood, such an open
yes,
shrub.
great for a wet site. Right on, Bob.
Yeah.
Viburnums, you can't go wrong with viburnums. Some of them don't color up very well, like the leatherleaf viburnums, but boy, these that are pretty common, the arrowwood viburnum, the cranberry bush, the black haw becomes a small tree. I love it. And then
Hmm.
this rusty black haw with its shiny foliage, wow, in the fall, they can be spectacular.
No doubt. One of my favorite shrubs is the black haw. Just it only has one issue is it gets big, so I tell
Yeah,
people don't treat it as
right,
a shrub, treat it as a small tree, and then you'll accept its bigness because it'll get 20 feet.
right.
Just gonna have to chime in. Jennifer said, I have a recently planted serviceberry, the autumn brilliance that she planted in June, and it's lost all of its leaves already. Is that normal? Yeah, Jennifer, I wouldn't want it to lose all of its leaves already. No, that's not normal. It shouldn't be gone by now. But, obviously it's still dealing with some transplants, shock and stress. And my concern often when I see autumn brilliance planted is how big was that tree compared to the size
Yeah,
of the pot? And I've seen them pot bound more often than not. I had a lady that I convinced her to plant some. They weren't growing. They defoliate early. I could see suckers coming up from the base of the plant. And I said, I tell you what, I can still move this thing. Will you let me cut it back and let it rejuvenate? And she said, well, what's the alternative? Well, you keep having a tree that's not performing. Well, we cut it back, the main stem, and all the sucker sprouts from below that graft became the new plant. And it turned out to be gorgeous, nice 15-foot
yeah,
multi-stem tree. But what can you do about it, Jennifer? Not a whole lot now, other than keeping it moist. And you probably were already doing that. But potted trees, they can be under have stress for months before they're rooted in, right? So it's just
yeah.
not rooted in yet.
Sounds like transplant shock to me for sure, but let's hope that's all it is. We'll mention here too some plants that fall might we think of leaf color, but there actually might be some things flowering yet, including the American witch hazel, which is a fall bloomer, maybe even into early parts of winter into
Yeah.
December if we have an extended fall.
Hmm. I have definitely had that. I have one at home and man, it bloomed in the dead of winter, I swear, last year. I couldn't believe it. It was December by the time it.
Wow, I love it. You can smell them. Usually they're pretty fragrant. So a few shrubs for western Nebraska here. The autumn amber sumac, which is a type of skunk bush sumac. This autumn amber came out of Colorado in the grasslands of Colorado. So reliable western plant. And then the Grollo sumac on the right. Either one of these would be good low growing uh, plants, shrubs for fall color. The sumacs generally do fall color up nicely in the fall. We have our smooth sumac on the right, which you see in a lot of our road ditches here in eastern Nebraska. And then a plant I've come to love in our park in Waverly is the shining sumac, which is a Missouri, Kentucky, eastern U.S. native primarily, but does well out here.
Sure does. And Justin introduced this to me as well. And now we carry it every year because I don't know of another nursery in Nebraska that does, and they should be. I don't think, I remember you saying this to me, Justin, it's not quite as aggressive as
Right,
typical sumacs.
right.
And the fall colors, it's more of a brick red than that bright red that you see on the sumac.
Yeah, right.
Not that that matters. But one thing to let you know about sumacs, folks, those seed heads that you see on sumacs, those berries, each one of those berries represents an individual tiny flower within that head. So one sumac head has hundreds of flowers on it, and they are pollinator magnets. So remember the sumac when you're thinking of helping our pollinator friends.
Yeah, well said, Bob. You enlightened me on that. I didn't realize how good they were for pollinators till you mentioned that, and I stopped and watched those buzzers around that.
Oh, they just go crazy for them.
We can thank Bruce Hoffman on today for one of these pictures from last year, I think, Bruce, the cutleaf staghorn sumac at Common Sense Nursery in McCook, and then Amy Seiler on the left has a same plant coloring up red-orange out in Gearing, Nebraska.
Could often be trained into a small tree, can't it? That
Yep.
leaf, yeah.
Yeah, there's this is the cutleaf staghorn sumac, and then there's a straight staghorn sumac, which gets to be a much bigger plant or even a small tree over time.
Mhm.
And let's just fly through a few of these, Bob, and then we'll get into seed collecting. But here we are in the prairie country, and we have a lot of herbaceous plants, or we should have a lot of herbaceous plants to enjoy in our landscapes. And some of the best are our prairie plants. Bob, I love this time of year when the Indian grass starts to show its yellow seed heads. That just
Yeah,
tells me it's autumn and football is coming on.
yeah. Yeah, just driving the interstate last week or two between Lincoln and Omaha, there's some nice stands of big blue stem and waving in the breeze and
Yeah.
Indian grass waving in the breeze. And that with sunflowers, yeah, it's like you don't even have to say to people, hey, what date is it? You know, you could pretty much,
Yeah.
plants are our calendar, right?
I love it. Little blue stem is our state grass on the left. It's really reliable for fall color. Some are bluer or redder than others in the fall, some cultivars. And then some plants are still blooming this time of year, including one I love, the aromatic aster.
Yeah.
Goldenrods. We could talk all day about goldenrods, Bob. Fireworks on the left is an early bloomer, and then this Wichita Mountains goldenrod. I took that picture out in Kimball at our farm. Holy cow! And
Wow.
it's been there for 10 years now, blooming like that.
Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, it's just built for Western Nebraska. If you don't have this out there, you know, anywhere in Nebraska, but specifically west, Wichita Mountains of Western Oklahoma is where Harlan, I didn't want to say Harlan discovered it. It found him. It was in the back of a tree guy's nursery. So Steve Biebrick is a tree guy, and Harlan spots
Yeah.
this thing blooming back there, and he said, "What's that?" And he said, "I don't know. I dug it out of the hills."
Oh,
So Harlan named it Wichita Mountains in honor of where he dug it, and the rest is history.
okay. I didn't know that connection to Steve Biebrick. I love it. Here downtown Lincoln, the Surety Life Insurance Gardens and the area around that. What do we call that area, Bob? Is
Oh, okay.
Antelope Valley.
Yeah,
Anyhow,
yeah, it'll come to me.
go downtown and check these gardens out in the heart of downtown Lincoln along Antelope Creek. This is Threadleaf Sumac on the left. Oh, Union Plaza. I have it right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Uh,
That's funny. I was trying to think of the bank. Oh yeah, you
yeah. Gay Feather and Side Oats Grama. And then out west, Amy Seiler, thank you for last year. And this is downtown Scotts Bluff, I think, on the left, perennial color that Amy Seiler took pictures of. Those might be catmint and little blue stem and drop seed and sedum even and goldenrod and asters and all kinds of. Look at the Scotts Bluff Monument in the background there.
That's a really cool shot in that those plants wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the help of the statewide arboretum and Amy Seiler and others there, because they're downtown Scotts Bluff and Gehring. Wasn't a whole lot of color. It was just a
Right.
whole lot of concrete. So showing them that you can add plants and without a whole lot of input.
Okay, we've got about 20 minutes left. We better get into this stuff. This is the fun stuff. Well, fall color's fun too, but uh, I count my lucky stars to have been able to get to know Bob and traipse around Nebraska with him collecting seeds for trees. I got free trees out of this effort 30 years ago for my own property doing this kind of thing, but um, I think we're one of the more progressive groups in North America tracking down native trees for seed production in our parts of the world. And Bob leads the charge on that through the statewide arboretum and the Forest Service. I won't read all this literature, but we're in the Great Plains in Nebraska where a lot of trees meet their range limits, trees and shrubs. So we're out trying to collect things from western Nebraska like limber pine or water birch or mountain mahogany. And out here on the east, all these oaks, hickories, ash, you name it, we're out trying to traipse them down. And then Bob gets these seeds, works with volunteers quite often, knows how to process them and grow them up. So, what do you want to say about that picture, Bob?
So if you look at my hand in the left, how many people are guilty of having black walnut stained fingers in
Yeah,
life, right? Oh,
yeah,
come on, I want to see a show of hands.
right.
But anyway, and then when you wash them, and I'll go to the store after, say I have to run an errand, and I go to the store, and it's like, okay, how do I hide my hand from the cashier? I just tell them, hey,
Yeah,
I was busy staining before I came in, right?
yeah.
Oh, no, really, I washed them. Yeah, but and it's crazy though. Go back once, Justin. The difference between stained hands from black walnut versus pecan versus hickory, each one has their own little finger stain, if you will, and
Okay.
I've had them all.
All right. I didn't
And
realize pecan did that too.
yeah, one thing I want to point out too in this picture, we can talk about black walnuts, how to remove the husk. If you're interested, just chime in the chat if you are. But then if you see here on the right, can you see my cursor, Justin, if I do that?
Uh, I'm
Mm,
not seeing it, but
well, anyway, the pecan seeds that you see on the far right, they are enclosed in a husk as well before they drop to the ground. And what happens is that husk splits open up in the tree, and then the pecan just drops right out. Well, the squirrels will take it sometimes when that husk is still green. Get this, one of the biggest predators I have to keep away from pecans are crows. And the crows will start gathering in the fall, as we all know, starting to group together in big groups. And all I have to do is watch and see how active the crows are on top of these pecan trees to let me know I better be doing this because they're waiting until they split open so they can pluck the seed on out. And I'll actually use the crows to let me know which tree is ripe and ready. It's kind
oh
of
wow.
crazy. Yeah, and another thing, with acorns, this picture second from the right with my hand with those big beefy acorns in them. I think this was a hybrid, maybe Justin, that you turned me on to in Waverly. We think it's a swamp white bur oak hybrid,
Okay.
which I think is a Chouette's oak.
Yep.
And anyway, the acorns are big, beefy. I like collecting those. And you may say, what if those acorns are still green? When is it too early or too late
Yeah.
to collect? If you are at a tree and the acorns are still green and you know you're not going to be back there for weeks, this is my only chance to get them, or the squirrels are taking them green, whatever the case may be. If you take that cap off, and the cap pulls the top part of that acorn with it, it's immature. It's not mature enough left. But if you pull that cap off the top of that acorn, if you can't dent it with your thumb, if your thumb just kind of like, uh, embeds into the acorn, it's not ripe and ready. You want the top part of that acorn to be hard, and they can still be green and be hard, you see. And then I'll go ahead and I'll let them sit out in a dry place, not a hot place, but a cool, dry place, and let them they'll actually change color um, in storage too. But I'll let them kind of sit out for a week, and because they're still green, and then I'll baggie them up after that.
All right, good advice. Some things we can collect green, right, Bob? And then, like I noticed with chestnuts, they might be a little green, the husk, but they'll open up if you take them off the tree, and if the nut is brown and released, it's still pretty viable.
Yeah, exactly. They'll split open and the hickory's the same way. If I'm wondering if they're closed, because hickories are a little harder to check on and split open. But if I let a couple sit in the truck and a couple days pass and they split open, that kind of is a good indicator to me that they're
All
ready.
right. Okay, so we travel across the region, including western Nebraska. We went out and got some ponderosa pines last week. Last year, we were out into the Pine Ridge near Shadron and found the last remnant population of bur oaks. We collected acorns out there last fall. And a tree bob we collected last fall, which I was really happy to hear Great Plains Nursery was able to grow, was the water birch. We don't have a picture of it here, but that's going to be a fun tree to use for western Nebraska. We try to collect limber pine cones some years for growing, especially Rich Gilbert at the Bessie's station does a lot of growing of these native pine trees.
Yeah.
Bob, I think you've collected acorns out of Burro Canyon, or Bruce has gotten you acorns
Oh, for
before.
sure.
Yeah,
You bet.
we'll chase acorns everywhere, even along the Niobrara River Valley here. And then definitely down here southeast, right, Bob? We're Indian Cave State Park or the Steamboat Trace Trail. And then I
Yeah.
wanted to throw this picture up. This is an area, Bob. Really, we should thank Bob for working with the landowner here in the Stalder property in Richardson County, southeast Nebraska. Bob knew about all these really cool trees, especially the dwarf chinkapin oaks, and had made it a mission to help the landowner conserve this property as it was getting encroached by cedars.
Yeah, that picture on the lower left with me and Brad, wow, that kind of says it all, how lush looking it is. And, you know, the landowner, Bill Stalder, was like, he would let us collect acorns every year, but and we were noticing that, man, the cedars are really getting out of control here. I wish we had a before and after. Um, anyway, what can I do? And I was like, well, you got to remove them. And so we got like 5 chainsaws down there. 12 people, I think, showed up that day from the Forest Service and Statewide Arboretum. And this pictures us collecting acorns, not of the cedar removal. But anyway, I think that was done back in 2012, something like that. And basically cut all the cedars out, piled them up, and then torched it the following March.
Yeah.
Basically burned the whole knoll that was up there. So all of the dwarf chinkapins basically got burned up in the fire, but we knew they were going to be fine because this species is resistant to fire, much like the chokecherry and wild plum. It will resucker, and they all have resuckered. That lower left picture, here's one behind me. They're all about, as tall as me now and
Yeah.
producing acorns. The one where Brad and I are like arms around each other, that is the national champion, which didn't get hit by the fire. I think they basically started the fire right in around that area and let it burn to the south, so preserved it.
Yeah, there were more trees like this 15 years ago. They got burned off and now they're shrubby again. And I think in this picture, Bob, if we could show everybody what's growing, you'd find this is a red bud, I think, behind you, and then also hazelnuts,
Yeah.
sumacs,
Mhm.
even other kinds of oaks. If I remember right, there was a bur oak up on the knob. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen black cherry there,
black
bitternut
cherry.
cherry. Yeah, all of the good ones.
Another place Bob's been out to collect and really conserve a Nebraska native tree that is very rare is the white oak, Quercus alba. We know of one native population in the state in northwest Richardson County. And the landowners didn't even know what they had until our cohort Brad contacted them last year. They met us down there, and boy, did we enlighten them about the treasure they're preserving there in the county, aren't they?
Yeah, and we're set to go there on Tuesday to collect and hopefully have some acorns on it because the population. I mean, there's no way it was man planted. And I talked to the man himself who wrote the Flora, Nebraska, Dr. Call, and he said, yeah, he thinks they're native too because they were just too random in there, and they're mixed in with bur oaks too. But
Right.
man, there's not just two or three of them. There's like 50 of them in there.
Yeah.
So pretty cool to be able to collect acorns from those. And Justin and I, our goal is to get some planted out in a area where it'll become a seed orchard for us down the road. It's one of those things where I should have did this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's never too late. But anyway, trying to get a seed bank going. So if this population does happen to, ever perish, we have those genes preserved because this is as far west as it gets in the world.
Yes. So we have two really important oak stands like this in Nebraska, Burr Oak Canyon near McCook, and this white oak population in Richardson County. Maybe I'd throw in there also our blackjack oaks, which are very rare and in only a couple spots.
In Austin, we're hoping to take you there on Tuesday.
That's right. Austin will be going along with us Tuesday. And you guys can too. Anybody that wants to sign up and help us collect acorns, let us know by email at some point. We do go beyond Nebraska's borders a little bit. I'm real fortunate to be able to travel with Bruce Hoffman on this call today to Southeast Colorado, where we're looking at oaks, soap berries, and things that are really going to be better for southern Nebraska and western Nebraska, including the wavy leaf oak and gamble oak, soapberry, things like that. There's Bruce on the left helping Tim Buchanan knock down gamble oak acorns. Look at the size of those trees growing on dust and bird poop. And then on the right, Bruce and Greg Morganson are collecting the Rocky Mountain live oak hybrid, which is Quercus undulata. So,
wow. Cool.
Bob and I have been down to Kansas a few years ago, and then they send us seed of things like Shumard oak, pecan, and now we're getting some varieties of Caddo sugar maple out of Oklahoma. And then there's urban survivors. This time of year, Bob's pockets are full of seeds, I'm sure. So are mine. Here we're looking at a couple trees. The one on the left is a really beautiful bur oak in Kearney, and on the right is a pecan from Central Kearney, dropping fruits for us.
Nice.
Maybe take a minute, Bob, to talk about how you collect seeds with the staff and what you do, or excuse me, volunteers.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, these two in the picture, one's Sarah Buckley, if you've met Sarah before, and anyway, and Liz, they were two former interns of mine, and that year the Nebraska Nut Growers Association was down, and they shook the trees, they shook the hickories because there was
Aha.
on them, so we were help picking them up that day, and you can see the harvest. So that's the shell bark hickory nuts, so they're huge. I mean, you wouldn't want to plant this over your driveway, right? But man, one of those clunked you on the head. I've never had the pleasure, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it would hurt.
Right.
But yeah, so again, we'll collect them in the field, and then these still have the husk on them, but and they're not split. They're kind of difficult to split open. So this is what I was talking about. I'll let them dry out for a week, and then they'll kind of split at the seams, and then it's easier to take that husk off. I just learned when I'm letting them dry out, don't do it in my back patio because you know who will find them and have a heyday. I cracked a bunch of nuts, or I removed all these husks, had a whole gallon bag bagged up, and was half of another bag here at work on East Campus. And then I went down to eat lunch at the office, came back less than an hour later, and one bag was gone.
Oh,
And the other one had holes ripped in it, and most of the seed was gone out of that one. I don't know what those little stinkers did.
yes.
Love to have them on camera to see, did they carry each nut out individually? Because it would take a squirrel some time to eat the darn thing. Never did find his stash, but he took a whole
Yeah.
bag of seed from me, that little stinker. But yeah, anyway, that cold moist stratification, that's the key. We have a walk-in cooler access to that, which is great because I can pre-sow the seed or just keep it in bags. And then I think the big thing for people to know, I think people think the seed needs to be frozen. And no, it does not. In fact, you'll kill the seed if you do freeze it. How is nature doing that? We don't want to go into that. The seed that germinates in nature, you think about it, one mature sugar maple, I think they estimate can produce 500,000 seeds. So in
Wow.
nature, the mother tree is producing 500,000 seeds because she knows very well not every one of those is going to germinate. And it's kind of the same thing with us as collectors. I remember a guy I thought should know better. We were collecting seed together, and he was off in one area and I'm in another. And he comes back and he says, "How do these look?" And I was like, "Well, you just wasted 20 minutes of your life." Because
Yeah.
what he brought me was just seed that was light. It looked off color. It just did not look healthy. And so I'm just saying, if you buy a tree, it doesn't hurt to sacrifice one acorn or one nut with your pruners on you, cut it in half and see what the nut
Yeah.
meat looks like. That nut meat should be creamy white, not all brown and discolored. I don't think we have a picture of that, but I love this picture of this kid
Oh,
cracking open that
yeah.
Buckeye. That's the husk of a Buckeye. And
Yeah.
and it's very, and the Buckeyes are dropping here. I mean, that is on my to-do list. Once I can find time and come up for air, I need to go collect Buckeyes here within the next week because the squirrels love them.
Yep.
But
They're
yeah,
dropping.
lucky Buckeye.
Okay, let's look quickly at these different groups and maybe get your comments on how you handle them. So
Yeah.
we've got white oaks and red oaks dropping acorns.
hmm Yeah, and you see the picture on the upper left of a chinkapin oak, and chinkapins, if it's a moist year, if we get timely rain when the acorns are ripe, the radicals will actually come out of the acorn. That's the first root coming out of the acorn, like literally on the tree, like up in the tree. We've seen it happen. Or if the acorns drop on the ground and the leaf litter and whatnot, and we get rain or something, it's really moist and damp down there, those radicals will come out too. Not all hope is lost, but when that radical really gets elongated, it can create problems. If the acorn's in the ground, the root's going to go down. So what white oak said, particularly chinkapin and English oak is another one, those two, bur oaks, I don't see do this, but even though they're in the white oak family, white oaks can. But anyway, long story short, if you just fall sow, you're going to be okay. What the tree decided to do is I'm going to put down a shoot in the or a root in the fall, but not a shoot. The shoot's not going to come up till next spring. So it'll just put down that root. So if you think about the tree's strategy, the tree's saying, well, if the moisture's there, I'm going to germinate and I'm going to put down a root in the fall. If the moisture's not there, I'm just going to hang out and germinate in the spring. Does that make sense? I mean, to me, it's
Yeah.
a good strategy for a tree to say,
Right.
all right, it's too dry, I'm not germinating. But if it is moist, I'm going to take advantage of you, nature, and get started here in the fall. So if you're sowing them in a baggie, though, if you're putting them in a baggie and all those roots are coming out in that baggie, you can have a real mess in your hands in the spring. And anybody who's collected seed and hearing me say this knows what I'm talking about. They're all twisted and turned in there, and they're basically junk. But yeah, you want to collect them, remove the caps, because if like these burrow caps you see here in the middle, they're not doing the acorn any good, and they can just hold moisture and add to, you know, fungus among us in the bag. So you don't really want that.
Oh, yeah.
And then again,
You
you
said to
collect
store
these
them, you said to store them flat, right? Let them dry out, store them flat as, don't throw them all in a bucket, especially the chinkapins.
exactly. So if I'm the ones on the far upper left, if I'm putting those in a bucket and put your hand in the middle of that bucket at the end of the day, you'll feel how much warmth there is just from the respiration of those acorns. So yeah, I'll dump those acorns in a flat just so they're not holding all that heat in there, because that heat is gonna, encourage that root to come out, right? And so I'm letting them dry out for a day or two in that tray, and then I'm bagging them up after that and letting them cool down, I should say, because I'm putting them in
Oh,
that tray in a cool area, so
in a cooler, okay, or
so they
cooler.
chill. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then oftentimes, like you see that picture on the far right, those are red oak acorns. You could tell that because of their size. But you see some of them are still green and they're perfectly fine that way. The top of the acorn, taking the cap off was fine, nice and hard. But oftentimes, if you can tell if an acorn's bad, again, by rolling them in your hand, they feel kind of like rolling a dice. There's weight to them. If they feel like, I heard somebody describe them, if it feels like you're holding styrofoam peanuts in your hand, chances are the acorns are no good because they just have no nut meat weight to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you were saying that all of these can be stored in the cooler over the winter. They need at least 90 days, was it 100 of stuff?
Yeah, 90 days, yeah.
Okay. And
So
the
like
red oaks are,
if you say you're collecting them in mid-October, by what is that, mid-February, you could take them out. But if you think
okay.
about it, wait a minute though, who wants to sow seed in mid-February? In other words,
Yeah.
the 90 days is the minimum. It's not
Okay.
like I got to get them out in 90 days or else.
Right.
It's just the minimum. So in other words, you store them and then you could sow them, when your temperature is right, i.e. for me, I would probably sow them if I'm not doing it production outdoors. I'd probably do it in sometime when the soil temp is getting warm, what, mid-April?
All right. Sounds good. So you can keep them in the fridge, or I did it this way. I sowed them out in the fall at my property one year, both the red oaks and the white oaks, and I had pretty good. You could put them in containers, heel them in some straw maybe, or north side of a garage.
Hmm.
So you could put them in the ground or keep them in the fridge.
Heck yeah. And some people like doing what you did, Justin. They'll put 6 acorns in a little spot or 12 or whatever,
Yes.
because they often have a lot, and then see who germinates in that spot. And then the question might be, well, what if all of them germinate? Well, that's a good problem to have. I mean, you could cull out the rest and keep one good one, in that spot.
We're going to run out of time here in about 5 minutes, but here's a question, Bob. Is it very easy to germinate basswood seed?
No, they're difficult. They have like 10% germination rate. So just like a lot of seeds, the lindens, they produce a boatload of seed, right? Counting on just 10% to germinate. So fall sowing is probably best for a linden to get it to go. And you
And
can look up online if you just look up germination techniques for whatever species. The great thing about the internet now is all that information's out there. It used to be only in books. So you can read up on what others do to germinate seeds. It's sometimes, I mean, more than you want to know, but still, it's pretty fun.
we'll look at a couple others. So here we've got hickory nuts, shagbark, shellbark, and bitternut hickory on the left with pecan, and then walnuts on the right. Are these the same kind of thing with 90 to 90 day
Yep, yep, they sure are.
adaptation?
And you can see the thickness of the husk on that hickory on the left, and then the center one is the bitternut, the little guy. And it's hard to tell, but that's the husk. The husk is like, I don't want to call it paper thin,
Right.
but it's really thin. Um, oh, there's so much I could talk about hickories, but I won't.
Yeah.
I'll let you keep going.
And pecans on the bottom, and then walnuts. You opened up the show talking about walnuts a little bit. You got to get that husk off, right? Don't store them with the husk on.
Yeah, exactly. Get that husk off. And there's various ways to do that. You can read up on that. Some people have their tried and true techniques with the gunny sack and running them over, or I roll them under my feet and clean them that way. And then after you get that husk off, yeah, then you just store them in a bag for 90 days.
Okay. Couple of other fun ones, Buckeyes and Chinese chestnuts on the left, and then pawpaw on the right.
Yeah, and the chestnuts, Buckeyes, same thing, easy to store, like you would an acorn, and 90 days. And all of these things I didn't talk about yet, but when you sow them, acorns are designed to be sown on their side, not up and down. They land that way in nature. Sure, they can land up and down, but you're sowing them on their side. Yeah, like it is in my hand there, because the shoot, if you want to show in your, well, we see where the root's coming out there on the tip, the
Yeah.
pointy tip. The shoot will come out of that same pointy tip. So the root goes down, shoot goes up. And so laying them on their side, the acorn doesn't get in the shoot's way, if that makes sense, by
Yeah.
putting it on the side.
Yeah, that's good to know. Remind myself that the shoot and the root come out the same point.
Yeah, because I certainly didn't know that before I did it. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that makes a lot of sense. Put them on their side, people. Now it makes sense. Okay, hickory nuts, pawpaws are ripening. Yesterday we were on campus. We found a pawpaw tree and we shook it, and about 8 or 10 pawpaws dropped out on us, so that
That's
was
great.
fun. Must be ripe right about now, right?
Yeah, it is. Mine at home's dropping. I got pawpaws on the ground. Been picking up for the last week. Every day there's new pawpaws on the ground.
And
And
you
I just
find those,
wait, I don't shake the tree. I just wait and say you'll drop when you're ready, and you can kind of squeeze them. And if they have a little give to them, like a ripe mango,
yeah.
should have a little give. If they're hard as a rock, leave them. If they have a little give, man, harvest that baby.
And the seeds, starting the seeds on those, is that hard? There's a little brown seed. There's 5 or 6 seeds in a pawpaw.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they can be picky. I mean, have a stratification, but it is a super long one, and it's like I can't remember, like 120 days. And then when you take it out of that cold chill and put it in a warm greenhouse, I'll often not have them germinate until late May, early June. It's
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy how long they take. So just be patient with them.
They don't have to go through an animal first?
Not from what I understand.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a good question. Certainly they will germinate without that,
Okay.
but it would probably help things along if I followed a critter around and
Yeah.
what I
Oh,
found is the overripe fruit, the critters will eat and they'll leave the seeds behind. In fact, that's
okay.
oftentimes how I clean them. I'll just leave them out and let the critters eat them because I found they just leave the seeds nice and clean
Okay.
right behind for me.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, and so Bob takes all these seeds, grows them up, and you mentioned earlier that over 100 types of woody plants might be sold in the green NSA greenhouse sales. You're having a plant sale today, and some of us are going to walk over there this afternoon. But this is your process in a nutshell for getting them started and getting them ready to be sold.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's all on the roots. That seed on the left is a hickory. And what's crazy about it, I kid you not, that plant is 3 weeks old. So picture this tray having soil in it, and you see those little hair roots off to the side, and then the taproot got stopped down here. The taproot met air, so this was in a mesh bottomed flat. So the taproot, when it hit the bottom of that tray, had nowhere to go. So it gets burned off at the tip. We call it air embolism. And that burning of the tip prevents it from circling around in that pot. And then it also forces side branching on the taproot. So even though it's only 3 weeks old, that taproot's as thick as a pencil. Blows my mind.
Take a minute here, Bob. Yeah, thank you so much. So that a lot of these things are nut trees, and they have a reputation of hard to being grown in a nursery or transplanted because they get deep taproot, right? That's a little hard to deal with. So
Right.
you're doing it there with that air pruning. Are these trees, like if you're in the backyard doing this, I figured out I got to be careful. I'm going to cut that taproot if I leave the tree in there too long. Any thoughts there?
You mean if you're transplanting one you grew from seed in the
Yeah,
ground?
like if you just threw it in the ground in your backyard, it'll get a taproot halfway to China. Bur oak will.
Yeah, right. Oh, for sure. And then you're certainly setting the tree back when you're transplanting it, but it certainly can be done, getting as deep as you can. Say that as deep as the length of your spade. And what I often do is tell people, well, when you're severing that root, you're fraying it with the shovel. Your shovel's not as sharp as a hand pruner's or a scalpel. So what I say is give that root a fresh cut with the hand pruners because it's going to give it more of a clean cut, and it's easier for that root to seal up that wound than it is without because roots don't have that same compartmentalization character that limbs have.
Yeah,
Roots weren't meant to be damaged like us humans do. They weren't meant to be moved. And so when we're moving large trees and cutting roots, they're as thick as your thumb. Anything as thick as your thumb or thicker is not going to regenerate new roots off of that cut. John Ball proved that in the research he did. It will produce roots back behind that cut, but not from where you did cut, if that makes sense. That's why
yeah.
when you're trying to transplant a big tree, whether it's in a pot or in a field and you're transplanting it, why does that tree sit there for 4 or 5 years? It's got to basically seal up all the wounds in that root system before it'll even think about growing.
But you have figured out, and people have figured out how to air prune, root prune these nut trees, right? Hickories and oaks. And our systems with bags and air pruning pots are pretty good for those.
For sure. And I think the big question people have is, yeah, but you eliminated that taproot. Isn't that going to affect the drought tolerance and, just the ability of
Right.
it to withstand winds? No, it's not an issue. Basically, what you have is more like 10 taproots rather than just one, right? Because they're all going to be those anchors and become those anchors, but it just really helps with the circling of a pot. But root systems don't listen to humans.
Right.
Even though, I mean, the system is okay. I think bottom line is, in a perfect world, we'd all be just planting seed.
Yeah.
But life's not perfect. We have to, like, for me personally, hey man, we got to make a buck, keep the lights on.
Yep.
And so
Right.
that's where it comes in. But I always say the smallest tree in the biggest pot is going to be your best bet.
I love it. Yeah. So I like this idea of just planting the seed where you want a tree if you can. You'd have to protect it from animal predation right over the winter. But chances are we're not doing a whole lot of that, although some of us might be. We're probably sowing these things and digging them up and moving them. And would you just maybe sow them in a container to begin with in your backyard? And
Yeah, you just have to be cognizant that that container should have a no bottom on it. Look into air pruning containers. The Anderson pots are common. Some people have those tree tubes. I don't really like them because there's, those 2 feet tall tree tubes.
yeah,
You don't need to do those. Really long guys, around 6 inches tall, and no bottom on it, but just know that you have to set it on top of some sort of mesh bench so that air pruning continues to do its thing. Because if you just set it on the ground in a container, it's just going to root right into the ground.
this picture of your nursery there, several of these plants are in these air pruning containers. So
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
gonna
Yep.
stop. Okay, that was the end of the presentation part of this. Thank you all for attending. I see there's a question here, Bob, from Hal Innevolson. Uh,
Oh,
is there any hickory or pecan planting in western Nebraska?
yeah. Good question, Hal. We need more of it, and you definitely need to be planting some in Potter. I'd be surprised if bitternut hickory didn't do well in Potter, or I don't know of one, Justin, planted anywhere out west. Now, we do know of some pecans. I know Amy's got a pecan in Gering, and it's holding its own, right? I think she said not a whole lot of it, and then I know Lyle has shown us pictures of pecans in North Platte.
Yeah,
Um,
we did see some pecans out in Scotts Bluff this last summer when we were out there. I was impressed. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's worth messing with, and just and I know Scott Skogerbo over at Fort Collins has gotten seed for me a lot in the past too, and to see if they're going to do well in the Front Range. But heck yeah, I would definitely try it. Northern pecan, good seed source, and as well as I'd definitely do bitternut. Shell bark would be a stretch, but what do I know?
Yeah, those two, bitternut and pecan. I'm amazed at pecan where we see them from North Platte to Lincoln. They do great. So
Yeah, I planted one
I'll,
in Curtis. That's good to hear.
as
Yeah,
we wrap up here with a few comments, just let me tell certified arborists, NAA or ISA, type in your, yeah, thank Mike, type in your arborist certification number, NAA or ISA, into this chat, and then I'll have that and I'll forward it for you.
Mike, you're a seed collecting fool. You should have had some tips. Did we leave anything out that you want to chime in on the chat and say you forgot to say this? You fools.
Yeah, Austin has a question here about advice on aspens or birches.
What? I'm sorry, what was that?
Austin is asking about any advice on sowing aspen or birch trees.
Oh yeah, Austin, the birch trees, they're aspen I've never tried. That would have been root cuttings, but they're difficult. The birch are difficult in that the seed is short-lived. They dry out very easily. They're like paper. They need light to germinate, and you have to surface sow them. My experience has been if I'm sowing them fresh in the fall, I didn't even have to give them a strat. The darn things germinated like every darn one of them in the fall. And that was on their remiss bench. And I was like, huh, because in the past I'd maybe only get a half dozen to germinate. Well, that was putting them in the cooler surface sown on top of a soilless mix and giving them a 90-day strat. Well, if I missed a watering, forgot about them, maybe it's like, oh shoot, walk in there and the flat's bone dry. Those birch seeds did not like that. And so, yeah, just know late August, early September, we should be out there getting them, if not sooner. I like late August when they're green, turning yellow, Austin, and you can break them up in your hands. They're ready to rock.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. That's got to be a challenge to get those things started. I was impressed that Great Plains had good luck with those few water birch we sent them from Northwest Nebraska last year. So I don't know what they did.
That's because they're Great Plains.
Yeah,
They
right. Yep.
know what they're doing. That's
They know
good.
what they figured it out. Yep.
Oh, Nicole was on. Hi, Nicole. Hi, man. Awesome. John, good to see you. George, you Pinker.
Came on today.
Yeah, lots of good folks.
Yep. Thanks for showing up today, everybody. We love having you attend, and we'll be shutting it down here just shortly here. Type in your ISA CEU number, and I'll make sure we're forwarded. Otherwise, thanks so much, Bob, for helping us out today. You really are a treasure trove of information and inspiration for us to
Oh,
do this.
well, you're welcome. All I can think of are the ones we left out. Oh, we didn't tell them how to germinate a sycamore
Yeah,
or
right.
I mean, guy, that's why I say, man, don't count on us. There's all sorts of great information out there online.
Sycamore, catalpa, sugar maple. What else are we forgetting about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Probably a lot of them.
Osage orange. I know that you can just take an Osage orange, cut it up, and press it in the ground. And
Right. That's what the cows did.
yep,
To do it in container production, I just soak those fruits in water for like a week or two, and it turns into a rotten, gooey mess.
yeah.
And then I would just take those balls out into the driveway, and if I pressed my foot on the bottom of those seeds, it'd squirt right out. It was really cool.
Oh wow.
But do it in a place where you don't care what you're doing to the concrete, because you are going to make that concrete look a little ugly. In other
Yeah.
words, don't put it in your driveway. Do it in the roadside.
Okay. I didn't realize that would stain too. It gets pretty nasty dark, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gets a little ugly too. It's just kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Now, what is the deal with that fruit that it's so thick and moist and it wants something to eat it, but I don't
Yeah.
want to eat.
Right. Well, it's probably one of those things where back in the day it had the sloth, with the big critters eating them,
Yep. Right.
pooping out the seeds down the road.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm going to have to shut her down now and get to another gig, but we thank you all for attending. Come back next month. I've forgotten the date already, but the second Friday in the month, and we'll talk about Christmas trees and evergreens. Thank you,
Thanks,
Bob.
all. See you later.